live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 46, a few things I want to talk about. I want to make sure you guys like and subscribe because the Revved Up 906 podcast is growing and we want to continue to grow so we can make a big impact in the Detroit Pistons community. So make sure to smash that like button and subscribe button. Also, our official merch sponsor is Grind Clothing Co. You can find hats very similar to the one Ryan is wearing in today's video and sweatshirts on their website. So to get a quick fast forward to their website, you can click the link in our YouTube bio and in the video description below, and that'll shoot you straight to their website to check out all the designs we have to offer. So make sure to represent your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast. Without further ado, episode number 46. This week, we got a good topic for you. I want to talk about the trio that will rev the Pistons engine to winning. So the three guys I want to highlight that will complement Cade and that need to play well alongside Cade in order for the Detroit Pistons to thrive. And those three guys are Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and Ausar Thompson. We know Cade is the superstar, but we need these guys around him to help out wherever he needs help. So all these guys have been drafted to supply Cade with help. Troy has handpicked these guys through the draft. So I want to talk about these guys individually and talk about what they can provide on the court to make sure Cade is thriving and to make sure this team is successful when playing on the court. I want to start off with Jalen Duren, and I want to talk about what he needs to provide for the Pistons to succeed. What are some of the first things that he needs to hit statistically for the Pistons to thrive?
I think he just needs to be a double-double machine and be an anchor defensively. If he can get you 12 points, 12 boards, and 2 blocks, I'm perfectly fine with that. He doesn't need to go out and do anything special. He doesn't need to be Andre Drummond. That's going to sound weird to say, but he doesn't need to be like Andre Drummond did for us. Andre Drummond, we just talked about him last week. Andre Drummond, double-double machine. That's what he did. But his double-doubles were huge compared to what Jalen Duren I would expect from him, given the fact that it was just him. There was no help that he had. But now when you have Cade Cunningham, the floor general back, you have Jaden Ivey, you have Ausar Thompson, etc. You have a whole gang to compete with. Yeah. And I would want a double-double from him. He doesn't need to do anything special. We said this last year. All we want from him is a double-double. And honestly, even if he's 10 points, 8 boards, I'm fine with that still.
Yep.
He needs to be a key defensive player for us.
Yeah, for me, I like the point that when Andre Drummond in his prime, we saw him average 15 points, 16 points. I don't even think Jalen Duren has to hit that milestone. That I think he does need to focus on rebounding because we've seen from James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley them not thrive in the rebounding category. We've seen Isaiah Stewart be able to go through stretches of double-digit rebounding, but Jalen Duren needs to be the resource to the Pistons, purely grabbing those boards, because if that's a category that the Pistons struggle with, we'll see put back points from opposing teams that will hurt you in late stretches of games. We'll see fast break transitions by the opposing teams if they get those quick defensive rebounds. Jalen Duren needs to protect the paint, and that means on the defensive side with defensive rebounds and protecting the rim. And then also offensively, you talked about last week with Andre Drummond how crucial the offensive rebounding is. And I think if Jalen Duren proved last year that he can be that putback guy, that quick grab the offensive rebound, back a guy down and put up shots, I think if he offers that to the Pistons, Cade, that's one less thing Cade Cunningham needs to worry about. We saw in his first 12 games with the Pistons last season, him reach the 20 points, reach the 5 assists, and then really put a lot of effort in on the rebounding category. If he doesn't have to do that this season, that's one less thing he needs to focus on, use his energy on. He can focus on the ball movement on offense and hitting those mid-range jumpers. If Duren can be that rebounder for the Pistons, I think the Pistons are that much better and will succeed for that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, a way he can be a resource to Cade, is Jalen's passing ability. We saw is very impressive for his skill set. We see a lot of guys that are those uber athletic centers that can just get those rebounds and big time dunkers. They're not always the most skilled passers or those kind of intrinsic stat guys. And Jalen Duren can provide that passing, which will be crucial for Cade.
Yeah, there's a lot he can do that he doesn't get enough credit for. Outside of hitting the boards and just dismantling you in the paint, he's one of those guys who actually can put the ball on the floor and cross you up.
Yeah.
Obviously he's not a guard. There's a reason he's not a guard, but still, like, his ball handling is very good. His basketball IQ in general is very high.
Yeah.
He's just one of those solid premier players that is going to be a threat to you for years to come. And he doesn't need to do a whole lot, but what he can do and what he can provide to you in certain situations that you may need a guy to do something for you, he's kind of that role. He's kind of that kind of player. If he were to just, and honestly, you look at Summer League, he developed a three-point shot. We saw him hitting threes. And in that situation, when you have him, who is just a paint beast, popping out and hitting a three in the corner, imagine Dwight Howard with a three-point shot.
Right.
Like,
dangerous.
Dwight Howard in his time there, early years, one of the best players in the NBA by far, hands down. You add a three-point shot to that, you're talking Dwight Howard, LeBron James, same conversation, realistically. So I'm not saying Jalen Duren is LeBron James. Just throwing it out there, I'm not saying that. But if Jalen Duren continues to develop this three-point shot of his and the jumper already that he's had thus far, oh my goodness, there's no reason why we couldn't be one of the best teams in the East by far or in the NBA, given what Cade can do offensively and defensively for us.
Alongside Cade, I want to talk about where Jalen Duren has to be as far as averages, realistically. This is not a hot take. We want to try to get in the knit and grit. Quickly, what did Jalen Duren average last year as far as stat line?
So Jalen Duren averaged 9.1 points, 8.9 rebounds, about an assist, a steal, a block, shot 65% from the field, did not shoot a single three, and was 61% at the line. He did have about 2 turnovers a game and about 3 fouls a game too. So based off of his stats from last year, honestly, there's no reason why he couldn't double what he already did in year one. Obviously, not double turnovers and fouls. I don't want that. But double points, rebounds, steals, blocks, assists. I think he could do that. I think he'd be in the ballpark of probably close to 16 points, 12 boards, probably 2 steals and a block. That's what I would want from him.
Yeah, I'm right around in that same ballpark. For the Pistons to be a winning team, Jalen Duren needs to supply Cade and the Pistons with 13 to 16 points. I'm right there with you. 11 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, and then he was right around that 65% mark from the field. I want him there again this year. I think he should be just as efficient. If he takes a dip, okay, but he needs to hover around that 65% because guys like Jaden Ivey, we know aren't the most efficient shooters. That's okay, but that means other guys have to take smart shots and keep up that slack so that guys like Jaden Ivey aren't burned every night.
I will say, it's kind of like the Boston Celtics and Robert Williams. That's what I want Jalen Duren to be for the Pistons. The only difference between the two is Jalen Duren is elite and Robert Williams is a good starter. That's the difference between the two of them. If Jalen Duren can provide to the Pistons what Robert Williams provides to the Celtics, we'll be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. That consistent factor at the center position that can beat up on other centers on any given night. I completely agree. Let's talk about Jaden Ivey a little bit and where he sits in this trio to support Cade Cunningham. For me, something he needs to provide to Cade and the Pistons is work on his spot-up shooting. Last year, we saw him kind of be able to have free reign over the offense. I think at times last season, Dwayne Casey and the team just kind of realized that Cade's hurt. We're not necessarily just throwing the season away, but also let's see how these guys develop and give them free reign of the offense. And Jaden Ivey, we saw that from him a lot last season, and where he was able to kind of dribble around, try to find his shot within the offense and do it off the dribble. Now that Cade Cunningham's back and Monty Williams is at the helm of curating this offense, I think everything is going to be very precise with this offense. If Jaden Ivey can't be a spot-up shooter, I can see him struggling at times this season. With Cade running the offense, he needs to be able to catch the ball on the wing, whether it's mid-range or at the three-point line, and be able to put that shot up right away. He's not going to be able to linger with the basketball the way he did last year. I think it's going to be crucial for him to become a spot-up shooter.
Honestly, again, he can be a spot-up shooter, but I think what makes him great is his cutting ability and just driving to the hoop. That's what he's really good at. If you can get him a pass outside and he's just driving it immediately, cutting through the defense, I think that's what you could. I mean, I'd want that.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that. I mean, if you look in Summer League, he did take a little bit of a step in developing his three-point shot compared to last year. I mean, last year he shot, what was it, 35% from three. Not great. But you look at what Asar Thompson did in Overtime Elite and in Summer League, shot 29% from three. So obviously Jaden Ivey can shoot. We've seen that. He has a great mid-range shot. If he can just get a little more oomph to the three-point category. Like, Jaden Ivey, realistically, comparison-wise, is Dwayne Wade. I'm obviously very, very, early on Dwayne Wade, but he could get to the level that Dwayne Wade ended up being for an entire NBA career. First ballot Hall of Famer. I love D-Wade. I think Jaden Ivey could become that. The only difference between the two of them is Jaden Ivey is a little bit more on the explosive side, whereas Dwayne Wade could hit that shot in your face consistently. But if Jaden Ivey could just be one of those great, Rip Hamilton-esque players for the Pistons, that's the perfect comparison. I think that's the perfect role for him.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to bring it. For me, Jaden doesn't always move with a purpose. We saw with Richard Hamilton, him always moving with a purpose, him coming off those off-ball screens so quick, ready for that three-point shot. If Jaden Ivey watches some Richard Hamilton film and kind of tries to mimic some of those traits that Richard had, I think that's going to be so good for the Pistons. And we see with our roster, we have a lot of able, big-bodied big men like the early 2000s Pistons did with Richard. So Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley are great screen setters. Jaden Ivey should be using that to his advantage because if he does, I think I could easily see Beef Stew setting a screen right around the elbow free throw line for Jaden, him coming off that screen hard, getting that pass from Cade Cunningham as he's heading to the rim, easy layup. I can see that happening. It's just whether the coaching staff and Jaden are starting to get in that thought process. But another thing I want to talk about with moving with a purpose is Cade Cunningham is the quarterback of our offense. We know that he can make those long ball passes in transition. I think Jaden Ivey should use that to his advantage this season. As soon as that defensive rebound gets in Jalen Duren's hand, Beef Stew's hand, be V-lining it down the court because I can totally see Cade throwing it down the court, full court passes. We saw that with Hamidou Diallo, the early stages of Cade's career. I think that's another thing he should use to his advantage.
Yeah, Jaden Ivey has elite speed. I would say between him and De'Aaron Fox, who De'Aaron Fox is known for being the fastest in the league currently, I would say Jaden Ivey is probably as fast, if not faster. But with the ball in his hands, I would throw De'Aaron still a little bit higher, just given the fact that De'Aaron is a point guard, whereas Jaden Ivey is a guard. But if you just, again, if you hit Jaden Ivey with an outlet pass, going full speed down the court, there's no reason why we couldn't have one of the best transition offenses in the league. Like realistically, you have, even in the situation of you're throwing it immediately down the court and you get hit Jaden Ivey, who's to say like you don't have Bojan sitting in the corner waiting for a three-point shot? Like realistically, that's what we should be aiming for with this offense this year.
Yeah, it seemed like it after when we were recording every Revved Up recap, I was always talking about like only if our transition offense thrived, because now that we added a guy like Asar and Cade's coming back, Cade's the guy that is known for making those passes. I think he's going to unlock Jaden Ivey's transition offense, because it was so often last season. I was like, Jaden, why aren't you pushing the tempo? I think the Pistons, that might be their bread and butter. They just haven't reached that point yet. I think this season with Cade coming back, they might unlock that. One thing too, last year we saw Jaden Ivey average 41% from the field. I think he needs to step up his efficiency a little bit. I'm not saying he has to be where Jalen Duren is at 65% or anything like that. I just think that now that Cade's back, Jaden's not going to be getting as many shots up as he did last year. Cade's going to be eating up some of those shots. If Jaden Ivey's able to be a little bit more efficient with his play, the Pistons will only be that much better for it.
Yeah, I think even with that, Jaden had a lot of opportunities just because last year you could tell we weren't trying to win. Realistically, we weren't. And so when you get free reins in your offense and you're kind of the go-to guy, you kind of have the ability to take more shots than you normally would take, or take questionable shots that you really shouldn't take, but you're going to take anyways just to get a shot off and try to maneuver and make the offense work. But I think his field goal percentage goes up, and that's not only just because Cade's back, but he is taking less shots. He would. Let's say instead of taking 20 shots a game like he had been this past year, he's going to take 15 to 16 shots a night. I could see his field goal percentage being in the 50 mark, 48% range. And that's not bad. I'm not complaining about that at all. He doesn't need to take a huge jump in the field goal percentage category, but you will see improvement this upcoming season just because Cade's back.
With the absence of Cade last year, we saw Jaden provide a lot of ball handling at times. Do you think there's going to be some growing pains of Cade now being back on the floor and Jaden not being able to work through the offense the way he did last year? Or do you think it's going to work out fine? Where do you see that ending up?
I think it's going to work out just fine. If you look at Jaden Ivey at Purdue, this is exactly what Jaden Ivey did at Purdue. He was one of the go-to guys, but he had a solid point guard around him. He was known for being more of a two guard than a point guard. But last year, we wanted to develop him and give him the ability of a point guard and have that asset to his game. And so now that he will have the opportunity to go back to his bread and butter and his college days, which he thrived with, I think he's going to be perfectly fine with Cade back. I don't think there's going to be any hiccups. Maybe initially, just because it's you're getting your foot in the water and you haven't really played a whole lot together. But obviously, training camp going into last season, they were playing a lot together. Practices, they were practicing all the time together. And then even Cade sitting out the majority of the season there after the 12 games. In that situation too, there were times where Cade was still practicing when he got back from the surgery and was healthy again. He was still practicing with the team. He just wasn't playing. And then even Cade watching from the bench all season long, learning how guys maneuver throughout the court.
Yeah.
I think I think Jaden Ivey is just going to be fine.
And I think a guy like Jaden, he knows the levels to teams. He knows that Cade's the guy. He knows that he was brought to Detroit because he should work well alongside Cade. And I trust Troy. I trust Jaden. I think they're both educated basketball players where I think Jaden will be able to fall in line with Cade. And I love the point of Cade being at most home games, most games in the gym with these guys. He knows how, after watching from the side, knowing how these guys move, knowing their speed, knowing their favorite spots on the court, Cade was taking recollection of that all last season. I think that's a great point because Cade's going to be able to find those sweet spots for each and every guy. And a guy like Jaden, we know he likes to get his shots up. I think Cade is going to help with that. What did Jaden Ivey average last year?
Jaden Ivey averaged 16 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal, barely a block, shot 42% from the field, 34% from three, 75% at the line, 3 turnovers, and 3 fouls.
Where do you kind of want to see his averages at for the Pistons to be a winning team?
Honestly, I'd be fine with him still averaging 16 points.
Yeah.
But I'd say 16 to 20 range for him would be just fine. I think even averaging the 5 assists that he averaged this past year, I think it's going to dip down a little bit just because Cade is back. So I would say I'd be fine with 4 assists. And then obviously, I think the rebounds are going to dip down a little bit too because Cade likes hitting the glass. But still, like 16 to 20 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal while shooting 45% from the field and maybe 36% from 3. I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty near there too. I think with the assists and rebounds, I'm not as worried about that because, like you said, Cade's coming back. He likes to do both those things. He's going to fill in those missing pieces there. So what I really want to see from Jaden, I want to see him around that 18-point mark. I think we don't want to see him dip from that 16. We for sure want him to take a little bit of a step forward in the points department. I want to see him really make an effort in the passing lanes this year. We saw shines of him being really good at stealing the ball in inopportune times for the opposing teams. I want to see him around 1.7 steals. Most nights he's getting those 2 steals. It's okay if he maybe gets 1 a night, but I think he needs to offer that for the Pistons because Cade's not the most defensive-oriented player. He needs to kind of fill in that role at the guard position. So I want to see him around that 1.7 steals. And then we saw last year him average 41% from the field. I would love to see him around that 48% mark. Might be hard to reach for a guard, but now that he's going to be taking a little bit less shots with Cade coming back, I would love to see him get a little bit more efficient with his shot. The third guy to this trio is Ausar Thompson. I think Ausar Thompson is going to be a crucial puzzle piece for this Pistons team to succeed. And now that Cade's coming back, I think if you put Ausar on last year's team, it's going to be a little bit harder for him to succeed. But now that Cade's back, I think there's a lot of room for Ausar to really thrive on this team. What does Ausar need to provide for the Pistons in order for them to win?
Exactly what he did in Summer League for us. Honestly, like he was everywhere. In Summer League, he was averaging 14 points, 4 assists, 10 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, shot 46% from the field, 27% from 3, 65% at the line while giving up 3 turnovers, 3 fouls a game. Obviously, I think the fouls and turnovers are going to dip down this upcoming season, even as a rookie, which is going to say a lot. But it just shows you his eliteness. Just in the sense that he averaged a double-double for Summer League for us.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be mean here, but they're not as good as actual NBA players. Because they're still trying to make the team. That's what they're there for, is a lot of those guys are still trying to make a team. And if they don't make the team, they're in the G League. And I kudos, because you're still better than us. We're bums compared to you.
Yeah.
But still, Ausar Thompson put put the league on notice. He had that poster on Dominic Barlow there for the Spurs. That was a huge play.
Yeah.
But he just time and time again made play after play after play. And it wasn't like his stats were flashy. He was just one of those guys to go in there, work, get boards, get points, and just do his thing. Yeah. And then defensively, you have the possession there against the Toronto Raptors where he completely locks up Grady Dick and blocks him multiple times. It's awesome. Like Grady Dick, compared to a lot of the guys in the league today, have the same kind of playmaking ability and the shot creating ability that Grady Dick possesses. Like Grady Dick compared to like a Fred VanVleet or others in that capacity, very similar. And I kind of see him being a Tobias Harris for us. When Tobias was with us, and even post with the Pistons there, and now with the 76ers, Tobias is one of those guys that just puts his head down and goes to work. He doesn't care how many points he gets. He doesn't care how many rebounds he gets. He doesn't really care about his stats too much. He just cares about locking down the opposing team's best player and working his tail off and providing a successful way for his team. Yeah. And that's what I think Ausar Thompson can bring for us this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he put on a show in Summer League that we can expect in the coming season. Stout defense, and not just great defense, but also I want him to be able to offer the Pistons the being able to guard the opposing team's best player. When you know in the East, you got to go through the Boston Celtics. Yep. They're just a great team and very small forward heavy. I believe that if we're in the 8 seed and Boston's in the 1 seed and we meet in the playoffs, a guy like Ausar Thompson, by the time he plays one full season, gets to playoff time, he is able to, I'm not sure, he's not locking down Jason Tatum by no means, but I think he can hold his own and be able to provide that defense against other star-studded small forwards. And I love that for the Pistons, because we've seen when the Pistons made the playoffs in 2018 and we got swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers with prime LeBron James, rookie Stanley 2-3 year man Stanley Johnson was not able to guard LeBron James. I want, by the time we start getting in playoff ready, Ausar Thompson can go up against, on defense, the opposing team's star player. Another thing, much like with Jaden Ivey, I want him to get out in transition. I think Cade is going to make an effort in getting the ball up the court fast, making sure the tempo's quick off those defensive rebounds. Ausar Thompson, we've seen with his time in with the Ignite, that in transition, he is thriving. I think it's going to be crucial for him to provide that transition offense for the Pistons. I also want him just to stay within his game. We know that he doesn't have to do too much with Cade. Cade's going to hit him in stride in passing. We just need him to play tough defense, not force up threes, force up shots, let the game come to him. We saw that in Summer League, him not force the effort to make offensive plays. He let the plays come to him, and it worked out really well. I think he should stick to that.
Yeah, Ausar Thompson, honestly, bold take, probably the smartest player on our team currently.
He's great.
And that's saying a lot, because we do have Cade, and I love Cade. Cade has an outstanding basketball IQ. But Ausar, you see how smart he is. When he was playing with Overtime Elite there, and when he was playing in the Summer League with us, you saw how good he was offensively and defensively. The way he would maneuver through the defense, dropping dime after dime, where you wouldn't think a play could happen there, but he made the play happen there. And then just defensively, he was a juggernaut. Like every single aspect of his game, from a basketball IQ standpoint, is what you want on this team. Because even we were talking transition offense, right? You could have the pass getting thrown down the court to Jaden Ivey, perfectly fine there. But you could also have Ausar Thompson facilitating that offense there. Because he's one of those guys that, outside of Cade, he could be the go-to guy in just facilitating our offense. And that's no disrespect to guys like Jaden Ivey or Monte Morris and others. I think Asar Thompson has that IQ to be that guy to facilitate an offense, kind of like a Jimmy Butler. Obviously, Asar can't score like Jimmy can, but they're in the same thread of just high basketball IQ guys.
Yeah, and will make it work whoever they're playing on the court with. We saw, like you mentioned, Asar Thompson average in Summer League 13 points, nearly 4 assists, 10 rebounds, 2.3 steals, and almost 2 blocks, which is just absolutely insane. As far as coming into his rookie year, where do you want to see him in the averages after we saw like a Jaden Ivey average around 16 points last year?
I am perfectly fine if he averaged 12 points, 10 boards. Like honestly, I'm fine with that. And even the 3 steals, 2 blocks, I'd be fine with that too. I think he could easily average 3 steals and 2 blocks a game. But also, and that's hard to do in the NBA. But I think he could do that because obviously he's not going to be the go-to guy offensively because you have Cade back. But then you also have just the paint beast in general in Jalen Duren, who we talked about earlier. You have Jaden Ivey, who can cut to the basket every single time and have a good mid-range shot. You have James Wiseman even, who can hit the midi, but then can back you down in the paint there and hit a hook. But I think Asar Thompson, with everyone back, I think he's not going to be the main focus, and therefore he can go out and do his thing and just be fine.
Yeah.
And he doesn't need to be the guy that's dropping 15 to 20 points for you every night, getting 15 to 20 rebounds. Like, that's hard to do. Only Andre Drummond can do that. No, I'm kidding. But I think Asar Thompson averaging 12 points, 10 boards, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, I think he can easily do that. And if not that, I'm fine with whatever he does because he's not a stat stuffer. He really isn't. He's an everywhere guy, and he doesn't care about his stats. So at the end of the day, I'm happy with whatever he does as long as he provides instant offense and instant defense for our team going forward this season.
I kind of want to see him around that 13-point mark. The only thing, like Jaden Ivey, I think is quite a bit farther ahead as far as coming into his rookie year. Jaden Ivey was than Asar. I think he's a little bit more refined. So it's like we saw Jaden around that 16-point mark. So I kind of imagine Asar around that 11 to 13. But I agree with you. I want him to make sure that he focuses on the defensive end with those steals and blocks. I think he can capitalize on that for the Pistons. And then also, you know, we talked about how a lot of the centers on our team, 2 or 3 of them, aren't the biggest rebounders. I think Asar Thompson's going to need to help out in the rebounding category. I want to see him around 6. I think if he's getting 15 to 20 minutes a game, he should be getting around 6 rebounds. And I want to see him be a little bit more efficient. I don't think he's going to have to take many shots. I think Cade's going to be able to help him get involved in the offense where he doesn't need to force up shots. So I wanted to see him over 50% from the field. I think if he does that, the Pistons need help as far as having an efficient offense. We saw last year put up 30 or below percentages in certain quarters. We cannot see that if this Pistons team wants to win games. I think Asar is going to be a guy that can help out as far as having adding efficient offense to the Pistons. So we broke down each and every guy, this trio of 3 guys, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and Asar Thompson, and how they can help Cade and the Detroit Pistons. Do you believe these are the guys that can work alongside Cade and help the Pistons win some basketball games?
Yes, I completely agree with that statement. Otherwise, Weaver wouldn't have drafted them. Yeah. That's pretty much the bottom line there. And honestly, I wouldn't say there is really a trio because, I mean, obviously those 3 together is a very explosive tandem. But honestly, throw James Wiseman into that same conversation there because I think James Wiseman can be one of these go-to key role guys within that group of guys right there, and including Cade. Those 5, I think, could be just lethal. And this would also help James Wiseman to really grow and develop more as a player, because he's not going to be the main focus or the main focal point with Asar, Jalen Duren, and Jaden Ivey, along with Cade. He can just go out there and do his thing. And he never got that opportunity in Golden State. But now I think because of these three guys and Cade back, I think he's going to get that opportunity.
Yeah, I think what's so crucial is we know that these guys got the talent. We know that they have their own niches in the game of basketball that they're skilled at, their own skill sets. But the one thing that makes all these guys work together, I believe, is the hunger to win. All these guys have come from winning programs, winning high schools, successful college teams. These guys want to win. All they know is winning. And I think that hunger and that effort behind the scenes that they're putting in right now this summer is going to pay off this upcoming season. And I think this trio that we talked about tonight are guys that are ready to play with Cade and are so ready to win after last year's 17-game win season. Not saying they're going to be necessarily the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, but I think if some of these guys mix well this upcoming season, I don't think it's crazy to be talking 8th seed with an all-star caliber player in Cade Cunningham. But time will tell, of course. That will do it for episode number 46. We talked about the trio that will rev the Pistons engine to a winning team. And we are so happy to bring you guys this content. Make sure to comment below what you guys think, if these are the three guys that will complement Cade and the Pistons to make them a successful team. We would love to know what you guys have to say. Make sure to like and subscribe. We will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.